Hey guys, so I didn't get to post my vlog yesterday because I was having trouble exporting the file after I did all the editing and everything. So I basically couldn't get it uploaded yesterday, but I'm doing it now. So anyway, but first, before I upload yesterday's vlog, I wanted to just say a few words. Basically, I wanted to thank you. First, I want to thank the Lost Boy again, John, buddy. Thank you so much for everything, all of your encouragement, all of your kind words, just everything, and you know everything that you've done. Thank you so much, and definitely, dude, if we lived closer together and not across a big body of water, we would definitely be besties. Like, we'd be the best of besties. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And I also want to thank Carter and my Skittles, Lisa. You guys are going through your own mess of stuff, especially you, Carter, with all of your health issues. And Skittles, you're doing a great job taking care of them. With all the stuff that you guys are going through, I just want to thank you too as well for being there, for being my moral support, for the encouragement that you've been giving me. It really, really does mean a lot, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys a lot more. That was really fun last night. I didn't expect to stick around a little bit after helping you guys out, but I honestly had a lot of fun just chilling and talking with you guys and petting the cats. So yeah, thank you guys for your moral support and just everything, all the encouragement. You guys are the bombio, and I think we've got a new bestie thing going on too, so thank you. And in light of that, here is yesterday's vlog. Hey everyone, it's Janet, also known as Nerdy Autism Mom, and I've decided to forego going to school today. I meant to, but I'm just like, after yesterday, I am way too tired and I'm way too sore and just feeling way too ucky, so I will go back tomorrow. Plus, of course, I have the anxiety of the kids having to go back to their visitation with their father, despite everything, which I am going to explain fully and completely, rather than saying I don't want to divulge too many details. I'm not going to divulge too many details. You know what? I'm done with that. And I'm going to put it out there. Absolutely everything. Right from the beginning. But first, I think I'll just simply talk about the events leading up to yesterday, which was the last time I had allowed my ex visits with the kids. Ryu had wandered away without him realizing it, and he had wandered away to the corner of a very busy intersection. all by himself without his father realizing that he was gone. Totally neglectful. That very day, I had actually read an article about a nonverbal autistic child who had wandered away, and they found him drowned to death. Ryu could have been hit by a car. He could have been kidnapped. He could have continually wandered and not been able to find his way back to wherever it was he needed to go. And so I stated that for the protection of my children, I stated that he was not going to have visitation. So I figured I would cover my bases. I had been going, and I still currently go, to see Kelly at the Domestic Violence Outreach. She referred me to a woman who works in victim services at the police station, who I contacted. From there, the lady from victim services suggested that I file a police report for negligence. Plus, there are other issues as well. I saw him grabbing Ryu by the back of the neck and yanking him towards him. One of the previous visits, as I was coming back actually from a visit with Kelly, and because I was just coming back and my ex had threatened to come down and meet Ryu off the bus. And my friend was getting the kids off the bus for me, as I had that appointment with Kelly. So my friend was getting the kids off the bus. So I did see where my ex grabbed Ryu by the back of the neck and yanked him towards him. The story on that was that my ex was not even going to allow him to go into the house to do anything. No using the bathroom, no filling up on snacks, nothing. He basically looked at my friend and said, "Yeah, I'll take him from here." And my friend said, "You can wait until his mother comes home." And that's when my ex grabbed Ryu by the back of the neck and yanked him towards him and said, "I've got a court order." So my friend got in his face. And then my ex backed off. And I was pulling in to my driveway. So anyway, from there, and that's not even the extent of my concerns. There's been even more concerns since his supervision ended. Ryu sustaining injuries, Ryu having a meltdown, not wanting to go, Leander, time and time again, crying and getting in his way to stop him from taking him away. So many things. And he has a history of abuse and neglect with these kids and abuse towards me. But yeah, the incident leading up to yesterday is, you know, Ryu wandered off. He was not paying attention. He said apparently in his affidavit that he puts Ryu kind of on a timeout kind of thing, sitting on a bench under a tree in that playground so he doesn't melt down. Well, I'm curious what he's doing to my child to cause him to melt down, because we're not prone to meltdowns at home, at school, anywhere else. And I think you guys know that we're not prone to meltdowns at home, because I mean, I film every day and I've only filmed like one meltdown, and that wasn't even a full-on meltdown. Like, so what is he doing to my kids to cause them to melt down? What is he doing to my kids to cause Leander to backtrack on his toilet training? What is he doing to these kids? But basically, Ryu wandering off like that, that was the last straw for me. That was child endangerment. I had the woman at Victim Services tell me that, yes, it is technically in contempt of court to withhold the visitation. However, it's child endangerment. She said that the safety of my children comes first. So I took her advice. I called and I made a police report about the negligence and about the situation. And the letter was actually given as evidence in court yesterday. And it even said no police officer is going to tell her that she can't do what she's doing to protect the safety of her children. And the judge took it, put it in the file as evidence, and still completely disregarded it. So, and I don't know what it was, but he could not seem to speak proper English. Like, he kept asking me if I had allowed my ex to have his visitation since whatever. And when I said each time, no, I had not, he would just look out and say, well, I'm not getting any cooperation from her. Lock her back up. And I'm like, what are you trying to ask me then? Like, how am I being uncooperative when I'm simply answering your questions? Well, anyway, by that time I had duty counsel. Duty counsel happened to actually be my previous lawyer, which was fine. As far as I'm concerned in this instance, she did actually seem to be trying to do things in a way that should have worked, but this judge is just simply and plainly an asshole. His mind was made up before I even entered that courtroom. I explained the situation. I explained about how my child's life was in danger. I explained all of this stuff. I explained about history of abuse and neglect, and he didn't want to hear it. It was just simply, I disobeyed a court order. Fuck you. So basically, he locked me up in contempt of court. Didn't matter at all that it had to do with the safety of my children. So as far as I'm concerned, family court does not rule in the best interests of the children. They like to say they do, but they clearly don't. He would not listen to any history of past neglect and abuse. Wouldn't hear anything of it. And this is the judge that we had that instated supervised access in the first place because of past abuse. And I'm going to tell you right now what that abuse was. When Ryu was about 3-ish, in stepping stones, which is, that's where he was getting his autism therapy. While I was at work one night, I was closing the store, it was my weekend, and this was at a time where Sundays we were only open 12 till 5. I was at work and I don't know what apparently Ryu did to instigate this kind of violence, but my ex punched him in the hand repeatedly until his hand broke. Anyone who knows about bones knows that the bones of babies and toddlers and small children are extremely resilient. They're very flexible. So to break the bones of a small child is very difficult to do. And he did it. Now, at the time, I was so blinded by love for this guy that I thought that it was self-inflicted because Ryu had bouts of self-harm. So, at the time, Ryu was in this very hard plastic race car bed, and he had been having meltdowns when being put to bed. So, thinking that, oh, my husband could never do anything like that, I thought that Ryu's broken hand was self-inflicted, that he had had a meltdown and that he had smashed his hand into that race car bed to the point that it broke. I was informed months and months later when he and I had gotten into an argument that he did it. And I should have thrown him out the window then. But instead, I stayed with the abuser and I had another child with him. And before the hand breaking, all the other things leading up to that. Because everybody knows you don't go from 0 to 60 in an instant. There was abuses leading up to that. Like, for example, apparently him teaching Ryu how to put his clothes on was basically 8 hours of screaming and crying with no food or drink being held in our bedroom while he's forcing Ryu to dress himself and not letting him out, sometimes up to 8 hours with no food or drink. Slaps to the face for not being able to open his own bag of rice chips. Things like that. And I didn't throw him out of a window then. He has neglected both of them. He actually was telling people when I was pregnant with Leander that Leander was not his. Because apparently, without me knowing, I cheated on him 3 times. I'm sorry, but if I had cheated on Spoonmaster 3 times, I would have left him way sooner. I came into the house. I'm a little bit chilly, so I've got the baby's Pooh Bear blankie on me. I got Linus here behind me. So anyway, yeah, there's just been so much, like, just leading up to yesterday's court appearance, like, and the judge wouldn't listen to anything that had to do with the past. He just simply wanted to know my excuse for not letting him see his kids. So, I mean, now the Ryu wandering off like that was the last straw for me. And apparently trying to protect the safety and well-being of my special needs child is not a good enough excuse to keep his kids from him. Now, right from the beginning, when he and I first met, I was 17 and he was 24. I had never had a boyfriend before. I was extremely, extremely introverted then. I had like one friend at the time that I hung around with, and eventually I dropped her like a stone because she was saying nasty things behind my back that weren't true. And I found out because there was a woman she spent a lot of time with that she was doing the exact same thing with me. She was talking terrible, terrible things about this woman to me behind this woman's back. Anyway, she was pretty much the only friend that I hung out with on a regular basis when I met him. But anyway, I was 17, he was 24. We met at a toy store that was in the little mall that was closest to me. And we just started talking, and right from the beginning he claimed that he had a master's in computer science, so, you know, had me to believe that he's this highly educated man. I was a high school dropout, so I don't know anything about the post-secondary education system. So, I mean, for him to be 24 with a master's in something like that, not likely to happen. Fast forward to 12 years later, and it turns out that he had like a 2-year computer repair tech course at a community college. He didn't even go to a university. He went to a public community college and just got a tech course. So anyway, so he lied to me about that right from the get-go. He's visually impaired. He actually has a prosthetic eye, and he didn't even mention that to me at all right from the start. I thought he had like a lazy eye or something. And then another friend of mine at the time, we went to go visit her and her family, and her dad asked him about his eye. And that's when he explained it. And he and I had probably been dating already for a couple of months. And I had no idea that he was actually legally visually impaired. Jeez, there's just so much I don't even know. I don't even know where to go from. Just everything that he's ever told me was a lie, literally. After we had moved in together, I think we were together for a year by that point. And he moved in, and my dad moved out. It was funny. My dad kept the house for his kids, and he had boarders there paying rent and stuff. And my brother and his wife at the time, my oldest brother and his wife at the time, moved in as well. And anyway, he was constantly flirting with my brother's wife at the time. And of course, everybody found it to be totally harmless except for me. I was quite hurt by it. After we'd moved into our own apartment, he started playing Final Fantasy XI online. And he, for some reason, always has to play a female character. So he played a female character, and he went by his name, Kitty Nakajima. This guy started talking to him. And it turned out that this guy was a 17-year-old boy from California. And my ex totally led him on in the game, claiming that it was all role-playing. So, of course, he was playing a female character. So he had this kid convinced that he was a woman. And from there, it actually did go outside of the game. This poor kid sent him a basket full of stuff, including an expansion pack for the game, a whole bunch of ribbons and treats and stuff like that. And my ex had actually directed him to my DeviantArt page, claiming that the pictures of me was him. So he had stolen my identity, basically, in order to manipulate this 17-year-old boy. And this kid was totally infatuated with him. That went on for 2 years. And I was so manipulated by him and so blinded by this love that I had for him that I was angry at the kid when I should have been angry at him for manipulating the kid. But I was just a naive kid myself. I mean, I would have been in my early 20s at that point. And I mean, him being my first boyfriend and being 17 when I met him, I was so naive. But yeah, it went on for 2 years. It started before I got pregnant with Ryu. It continued while I was pregnant with Ryu. And it continued for a little while after I'd had Ryu. To the point where this kid even found out that he was a man. And he didn't even care. He was so infatuated with my ex that he didn't even care that he was a man, and it just, yeah. And then from there, I had Ryu. It took a while to get Ryu diagnosed with autism because I told him I suspected that Ryu had autism, and he kept just outright denying it, saying, no, I don't believe that. And then, of course, once he was diagnosed, he's like, oh, leave it to the blind guy to have a retarded kid. Stuff like that. Like, I decided when Ryu was about 2, I decided that I should go out and get a job because we needed the money. So now we were on his assistance at the time. He seems to feel the need, or he seems to feel like he's entitled to basically earn free money. So he's pretty well taking advantage of the system. And he's doing it again right now. I don't get any child support or anything from him. But anyway, we had been on his assistance because I got laid off from my job just before I found out that I was pregnant. And then after I'd had Ryu, I asked for a maternity extension on my EI. For maternity. Anyway, and then yeah, so we were basically living off of my EI for a little bit and his assistance, which he claims is disability, but it's assistance. So anyway, I decided that it was time for me to go out and get a job because he constantly said that no one would hire him because he's visually impaired. Going, oh, I'm trying and blah, blah, blah. And he never was. I mean, he never was. But I was too manipulated and naive to see it. So anyway, I went out and got a job. Which left Ryu in his care, if you can call it that. Then from there, neither of us reported to his assistant's case manager that I was working until I was there for a little while. So then from there, once we told her that I was working and she saw how long I had been working for, basically the long and short of it is I got charged for fraud because I was working. He never got touched, even though it was his name on that check every month. And yet he was never charged. I took the entire brunt of it, and at that point I was pregnant with Leander at the time. Once I went to court for that and was charged with that. I had gotten a 9-month conditional sentence because it was a first offense. I think I was 3 months house arrest, and I was allowed to leave the house strictly for work and going to doctor's appointments because I was pregnant. So anyway, I was solely charged in that. I had gotten a probation officer the whole bit, and my ex had gotten a letter in the mail about how much was owed, and I'm like, well, I'm already paying on a restitution on that. And when I brought this up to my probation officer and I brought the letter with me, she actually said, so he should have been charged as well. And I said, yeah, probably, but I'm going to take the blame for it just like I always do. So even at that point, I had this little inkling that something was wrong. but I was so manipulated and blinded. Throughout all of this time, he had been sexually abusing me. He would basically do whatever he felt he needed to do while he assumed that I was sleeping. He'd just yank my pants down and go at her. There was one time Leander was napping, so I went for a nap as well. I mean, he was just a baby, so of course I was sleep deprived. So I went for a nap, and I heard the door to the bedroom open, and it woke me up. And he had put Ryu on the toilet, and he came upstairs, and the door woke me up, and I literally watched him watching me as he walked across the room. He was trying to make sure I was still asleep. With him being visually impaired, he couldn't tell that I was watching him, watching me. And he walked across the room, and he went to the top drawer, and he grabbed a bottle of lube, and he came over and tried to do it again. And when I wouldn't let him get anywhere with it, he got completely miffed and said, "Just forget it," and walked out of the room. And then he was just moping for the entire day, and by the time we were going to bed, I asked him what was wrong. And he said to me that I made him feel rejected, unwanted, and unloved because I wouldn't let him do what he felt he needed to do to me without my consent. And when I did not give him that consent, that's what I got. There was another time where I was regularly working at 6 o'clock in the morning. And this was fairly close to the end of it. So a lot of this time too, he's actually claiming that he was having testicular pain, and that the only way to get rid of the pain was to have that release. So that was basically him pressuring me into having sex with him. So there was one night he's claiming all this pain, and here I am. I was sleeping in my uniform at the time, so I could get a little bit of extra sleep in the mornings, so I wouldn't have to deal with getting dressed and like taking the time to get dressed and everything. I would sleep in my uniform. And he literally had me up until like 3 o'clock in the morning, begging and pleading with me. And I'm like, I need to get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning so I can be to work for 6. And he didn't care, and he kept begging and insisting, and I kept telling him, you know what, go to the bathroom and take care of it yourself. And because of his wholesome Christian values, apparently he couldn't take care of it himself. Apparently his Christian values say that he needs to take advantage of his wife. And that's not including all the times that he actually did just simply have his way with me when he thought I was sleeping, or when I was sleeping. I'm pretty sure the entirety of the world looks at that as rape. And I never thought of it that way until it was actually pointed out to me. And then I was like, yeah. Yep. I was raped by my own husband multiple times over the course of like 12 years without even thinking it, without even realizing it. He's neglected the kids to the point where, like, even my father would come down for a visit and he would see that the kids' diapers were completely full, and he would mention it to my ex, and my ex would just tell him, "Oh, Janet's going to be home in a little bit, she can deal with it," when the kids have these completely full diapers that probably couldn't even stand to have any more waste in them. And he would be downstairs in his little basement dungeon working on a computer while the kids are upstairs by themselves. Like, I've literally been put through hell by this man. As of now, he is going from church to church, manipulating people, calling me a narcissist, doing all this sob story bullshit, getting free stuff out of people. My life has been hell, thanks to him. And I'm starting to reconsider my answer to that question that I asked you guys about if you could go back and change the past, would you? After yesterday, I'm actually really reconsidering my answer of no. Not to sound selfish, but he has put me through hell. We were together for 12 years. Actually, yeah. No. It was 12 years that I finally caught on. It took another year for me to actually get up the gall to tell him that I wanted a divorce. So we had been together for 13 years. And it was exactly a month to the day after our 13-year anniversary that I told him that I wanted a divorce. And then from there, it's been nothing but hell. Hell upon hell, because it was already hell. And then he just made it worse. And he continues to make it worse. So, I'm done being quiet about it. I can't take it anymore. The kids shouldn't have to take it anymore. He's nothing but a compulsive liar, an abuser, a manipulator, gaslighter. All of those things. He is the embodiment of pure evil, as far as I'm concerned. And it's so demeaning to me that the justice system is siding with the embodiment of pure evil, when I'm just trying to protect my kids from a man who has a history of neglect and abuse towards all of us. He has a best friend that he's had since childhood, and I know this is a very serious claim, but I've seen this for myself. My ex actually showed me, by hacking into his best friend's computer, what his best friend likes to watch when nobody else is home. And I'm going to outright say it. His best friend that he's claiming to the courts has no reason why he can't be around my nonverbal special needs children, indulges in child pornography. I've seen it for myself. And I can even describe at least 2 of the 4 videos that man had up on his screen. I can still remember 2 of the 4 videos that he was watching on his computer when my ex hacked into it to show me. Now, I'm sure I'm probably going to get a lot of, well, why didn't you report this? Blah, blah, blah. Fear, anxiety, being manipulated. Not to mention, look at what I'm going through now when I am trying to report this stuff and I'm getting nowhere. No one will listen to me. And this would be a big reason as to why a lot of people don't report these things, because no one will listen. No one listens to my legitimate concerns for the safety of my kids. I get demeaned in court and thrown in shackles and thrown in a holding cell because I'm trying to protect the safety of my children from this man and the people that he has around him. So those would be the reasons why I didn't report it. Not to mention with physical abuse cases, apparently you only have like 6 months or so to report something like that. So by the time I even knew that it was him who actually abused Ryu to the point of breaking his hand, it would have been too late anyway, because I had no idea for months. So it's pretty well useless at that point. But from here, I'm learning that I really need to be an advocate, and I really need to make my voice heard. I need to make other people's voices heard, and I say people because it's not just women who suffer from this. It's men as well, and men are less likely to report abuse because society has this standard of men. And it's time that we don't take it anymore. You know, it's not right for any human being to have to suffer and continually suffer and basically be told by the courts that you have to continually suffer. It's inhumane, it's degrading, it's demeaning, it's everything that is negative and evil. And I can't sit down and take it anymore. So that's the story. That's my story. I have literally been going through hell. I've even thought about trying somehow to scrounge up a shit ton of money and like get fake passports, get name changes, and move out of the country. Like move to Europe or something, because I can't take this. And with the justice system on the side of an abuser, what else am I supposed to do? I feel like I need to run and hide, but I can't do that. So, yeah. I'm sure there's more to this story I can't really think of right now. And I've already been talking for 27 minutes, and the kids are going to be home soon, so I'm going to leave it at that for today. And perhaps continue on tomorrow if I can think of anything more to say. So, yeah. Anyway, I guess I'm going to sign off for the night. I'm going to enjoy being with my kids once they get home. And we'll see you tomorrow.